Welcome to the College Noobcast, a podcast dedicated to informing you about what to expect as you begin your studies in higher education. My name's Corey.
I'm Joe.
And we'll be your hosts as we explore the campus,
Meet some students,
interview professors.
chat about our own college experiences.
Now, please leave your phones on. Yes, food is allowed here. And don't worry, this won't be on the final.
This is the College Noobcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the College Noobcast, Episode 3. Joe, we've made it this far so far. Isn't it great?
Yeah.
My name is Corey...
Hello.
Well, my name is Corey McCrae. I'm joined by my good buddy here, Joe Gugino.
Hello. Hi. How's it going?
And we're here today to talk about a very serious topic when it comes to college, health.
Health.
It's very important.
Yeah, it is.
Very important. We talked to, well, not you, me talked to one of the counselors on campus, just, to get an idea of what mental health, what kind of mental health on campus is like. And it's a wide range. I phrased that pretty weirdly, but just basically how to be mentally and physically healthy while you're attending college. Because it can be difficult sometimes. You're away from your family or the people you lived with, and usually they're a pretty accurate measure of how healthy you are.
Yeah.
Usually they can tell you, oh, you seem a little different. You should probably take you to the doctor, or this is something you need to get looked at. But when you're on campus, you're kind of alone here. You really don't know.
Yeah, you're on your own to figure things out.
Yeah, I interviewed one of the counselors on campus, Dr. Tracy Stenger, and she's a real nice lady. We talked a lot about the different health issues that you might come across, stresses that you might have, and ways you can deal with it. And it was actually informative, I would think not only for the audience, but actually myself. I learned quite a bit talking with her, just how important it is managing stress itself on campus.
Yes.
Because there are a lot of stresses that come with going to college,
I need to stop hitting the computer.
You're gonna ruin it, Joe.
By accident.
So anyways, why don't we hop right into that interview? We'll get straight to it and hear what Tracy has to say about, health and staying fit, active, and healthy on campus. Here we go. Ooh. Hello, I'm sitting here with Tracy, one of the counselors at the health center on campus. Why don't you introduce yourself, Tracy? Maybe give a little backstory.
Sure. My name is Dr. Tracy Stenger, and I'm the director of the counseling center. I've been director. This is my first year. I was interim director last year. Prior to that, I was assistant director, and prior to that, I was a counselor here. So I've been at Fredonia about 15 years.
Wow.
And I've worked in the counseling center my whole career here, and we're in La Grasso Hall, and we're right down the hall from the health center. We're sort of under an umbrella called Student Health and Wellness Services, which is somewhat new. We're looking at how we can increase our collaboration with the health center, but currently our services are separate, and we provide mental health counseling for students on campus.
It's very cool. And then not a lot of people can say their whole career is in one place.
Right, right. And I was a student at Fredonia a long time ago. And in many ways sort of grew up on this campus. My father was a faculty member here. My mother was a secretary here. My brother attended here as well. And I left and went and did my graduate degree. I taught in Japan for a couple of years. I lived in Malaysia. Never expected I'd be back at Fredonia. But here I am, and I really love it.
All right, this is very cool. So we'll get right into the questions.
Sure.
I know you got stuff you got to get doing. It's a busy campus.
It is.
Okay, so what is something you think that college students don't consider when they first come to campus that they should be thinking about?
Well, I think part of what I'm going to speak to is from obviously working in the counseling center. We see students who are struggling in all sorts of different ways. And in the fall semester, we have a lot of first-year students who come in. And I think many of them are struggling in ways that they didn't necessarily anticipate. And I'll just kind of go through a list of things that come to mind. One is, I think there's such a change in the structure. In high school, there's a lot of structure. There's, your teachers are telling you what to do and making sure you're handing things in, and, you've got your school day, that's whatever, 8 to 3, and then you might have after school activities, and there's a lot more structure.
Oh, yeah.
Here, no. And it's really up to you. There's not structure in your living environment. If you don't go to class, nobody's going to call and find out. Your roommate may or may not care. You may or may not like your roommate. So, there's all that sort of, now everything is really up to the student to whether you get yourself to class or not, whether you get your assignments done. Faculty here at Fredonia are, what I see for the most part, very caring and very concerned, but they also expect students to be independent and self-motivated, and if they're struggling, that they reach out. They're not going to sort of chase after them. So that's one of the biggest things I find. I think a lot of students may struggle with homesickness, but not maybe in the typical way, in the sense of like, oh, I miss being home with my parents, because maybe you don't even like your parents or, the environment that you came from, but more so in the adjustment. Socially, that can be a really big change. You may connect with people at orientation, and I've seen those relationships last quite a bit. I often see relationships in college as kind of being like in a greenhouse. Things happen really fast. You meet somebody, and then suddenly you feel like you've known them your whole life.
Oh, yeah.
So things happen very intensely, but that can also come with a lot of, challenges that maybe you haven't experienced before. So I see sort of the independence, the self-motivation, and then the social challenges as some real primary things that I think a lot of students don't necessarily think about. They may be anxious about, but it's really kind of once you get here, and experiencing what it's like. Many people haven't ever even lived or shared a living space with someone in their entire life, even if they have siblings. So a lot of challenges can come with that. And I think another area that I see as a big challenge for students is sort of maintaining self-care, from regular sleep habits to healthy eating habits to regular exercise. And I know those sound really basic and silly and simple, but those are the biggest things that we see getting in the way for students. Sleep issues are probably the primary one. Many students, if they were really physically active in school, did a lot of sports, sometimes they come to college and they're like, oh, finally, I don't have, soccer practice every day. Right. But now their body has been used to them being so physically active, and then not doing it anymore changes. So that adjustment, and those things really do take a toll. A younger body manages those things a lot better than somebody older, but that really affects your mood and your performance and all sorts of things. So those are some things that come to mind. I could probably talk about this for an hour, but I'll let you move on to the next question.
I know I could definitely understand this sports one. I used to run track all the time in high school, and then coming back here, there is a training room. There is a place to actually work out, but I don't feel like I get there often enough.
Right.
And when I do, I feel really good. I feel really healthy, but
Right.
Sometimes I just can't make it.
Yeah, and your schedule is so different now. I mean, you may have classes at night, or one class at 8 o'clock in the morning and another one at 4 o'clock, and then you've got this gap, but then you've got activities you're involved in, or, homework that you've got to do, or some students are also working at the library or FSA, or they're taking a nap because they didn't sleep well the night before, and it's sort of like adjusting to that, and then recognizing, and we just know, I mean, even I can say that physical activity sometimes is even more helpful than therapy, as far as being able to engage in that regular
just getting
exercise.
Up and moving.
Absolutely.
So you touched on a lot of the questions that actually I have set up, but we'll just go through them and we'll delve in, I guess, get more information out of them. So one of them is I miss home. What can I do about that?
Well, and it is, I'll answer this in a little bit of a different way than I talked about before. I think, we have a lot of students who might be from like the Buffalo Rochester area or even closer, and where they have the maybe physical ability to go home more frequently.
Right.
And that can be sort of a mixed bag. It is probably possible for someone to go home every single weekend, but that is going to impact their life here as far as building connections and adjusting. So we encourage students to try to stay on campus, at least setting up sort of a pattern, for themselves that they're feeling like they're really struggling, that going home can be really helpful, but also working through and trying to set up opportunities for them to be here and take advantage of the activities. The residence halls work very hard to do a lot of programming to help students, particularly those that might be struggling with social anxiety or homesickness, to start being connected. So taking advantage of those things. I mean, the activities night is so huge and pretty overwhelming. There's so many clubs, but being here to be able to take advantage of that. So sort of challenging oneself to say, okay, well, can I wait until fall break to go home? We have, because of technology and social media, we see a lot more students communicating regularly with family, through Skype, FaceTime, text messaging, and maybe taking advantage of those opportunities as a way to maintain connections with home, but also allowing themselves to build the relationships here. But if you find that really missing home is getting in the way, and what we'll see is some students will stop maybe going to classes, or they're completely socially isolated and they're not building connections, when that starts getting to a point where you see it's say it's affecting class attendance, or the mood is getting really low, those are times where we would encourage a student to come over and talk to one of the counselors here. We're a confidential service, so we don't disclose any information to anyone outside of the counseling center, and it's a safe place to talk about what you're experiencing, and we can help figure out some ways to maybe address what's going on. A lot of students that might be experiencing particularly if they're struggling socially, we might actually have them do group therapy, which can be really may be stressful if you're anxious, but at the same time, you're in a small group with peers, and you're starting to address some of the things that might be getting in the way to building those social connections.
I know I have a couple friends who actually come to the counseling center, and they love it. It's not something. It's usually something that's looked down upon almost if you have to go to counseling. But I think it's important to know that this is something that can help you. It's just talking, really. Absolutely.
And this is, we're very busy. We see probably 1 out of every 4 students that come to Fredonia at some point. Sometimes people come in just one time because they're in significant distress and they just need a safe place to talk to somebody or get some feedback. We see some students the whole time that they're here at Fredonia, and for a variety of reasons. It might be something I've had actually. In the spring, we see more seniors with homesickness, and you wouldn't expect that. And often they're like, I don't know why I'm homesick, but there's this kind of like, oh my gosh, this next step, I'm not moving home, I'm now going to grad school, or I'm moving across the country for a job, and now suddenly realizing that this has allowed them to maintain that still connection at home and school, and they're launching into this next phase, which can be scary. But we're a safe place to come, and the counselors are really here for the students. The students are the only people that we serve.
Very cool. So I know a big part of being on campus and learning, coming to college is stress management.
Sure.
And I'd like to know just how can I better manage my stress?
Right. Yes, and that's the $1 million question, isn't it? And I will come back to something that I described earlier. Is one of the best ways is to maintain those sort of 3 basic areas of healthy eating habits, regular exercise. And when I ask students, because every student that comes here for the first time I meet with and get a sense as to what their life is like, what they're experiencing, and many, when I ask about exercise, will say, well, I walk to class. Well, that doesn't count. I mean, that's great, and take the stairs as often as you can. We're talking about vigorous exercise, going for a run, going for a brisk walk for 45 minutes, going to the gym, joining. I mean, there's so many club sports. Trying something new, ice skating. I mean, they're all going swimming, all sorts of things that you can do. But that regular physical activity is a huge stress reducer. A lot of times students will struggle with, I don't have time, I don't know how to fit this in. They're probably spending a lot more time not being as productive because they're not exercising. So something that's maybe taking them 4 hours might actually take them 2 or 3 if they took one of those hours and maybe did some physical activity. Healthy eating habits, I know it can be a challenge. You hear a lot of complaints, oh, the food here. There are opportunities to get, to find healthy food or to find yourself being able to be in, say, a kitchen suite so you have more control over your own eating habits, being able to go get fresh produce, those kinds of things. And then obviously the sleep, maintaining a healthy sleep schedule. And that's challenging, particularly in the dorms. But being able to, try to have a regular sleep schedule, and napping can be okay if it's brief, but I see a lot of students will take 2-3 hour naps in the afternoon, and then they say, well, I can't sleep at night. Well, yeah, because you've made up part of your sleep already. So those 3 things are one of the biggest things for stress relief. Some people find it helpful to talk to other people about their stressors. Other people don't, and that's really individual. Sometimes if people don't want to talk about it with somebody, sometimes writing about it can be helpful. And I think this comes back to one of the things I talked about earlier about the difference between sort of high school and college, the structure being organized, learning how. And I don't think I learned how to study. Well, I know I didn't learn how to study until I came to college. I really didn't. And I don't think because the structure of high school just provided those things for me. There was like, okay, you're going to study for this test that we're going to have, tomorrow. And the teachers would kind of facilitate, what you needed to do. So I know I really learned that, but it was trial and error. But also taking advantage of services that are available on campus. There's a learning center that's here that has tutors. And, people who go to tutors are ones who are students who want to do better. So it's not about, if you don't understand the material, the tutors are available for you. But if you also just want to do better in the class, these are often students who have already taken that class, and they can really be helpful. And they can also help with study skills.
I know definitely when I came to college first, I did not know how to organize anything at all.
Yeah.
And some classes were suffering because of that.
Sure.
And it was kind of a stressful situation learning how to be organized. Absolutely. And definitely learning how to be organized is very important when coming on to college.
Right, it is. And I think it can be very individual. I mean, there's lots of different tips, and what's going to work for you might not work for me, but being able to stay on top of things, because again, nobody else is going to do it for you. It's going to be totally up to you. I mean, your faculty, they're going to give you a syllabus at the beginning of the semester, and to varying degrees, it's going to have everything outlined on when things are due, and how are you keeping track of those kinds of things, and, how are you planning out, I've got a 20-page paper due at the end of the semester. Waiting until the last day is probably not going to work. And sometimes we learn those things the hard way. And that makes me think, too, I think there's some of the challenges first-year students struggle with is sort of the expectations of, classes. And you'll certainly hear from people who've been in classes, what they think, oh, that class was easy. And you really got to, recognize some things might, your friend may be really fast with stuff and it might take you longer. That's just a reality. We all approach things differently. I think a lot of students also think, well, a 100-level course is going to be easy and a 400-level course is going to be harder. And in many ways, that can actually be reversed. A 100-level course is an introductory course. So it's basically going to provide you with a ton of new information, where a 400-level course is already assuming you've already learned a lot, so it's more focused and more detailed, but you have a lot of background knowledge. So 100-level courses can be very challenging in the content, in the amount that's learned, in the detail, and I think a lot of students don't expect that, and so they think, oh, this is supposed to be easy, so they may not put the effort in. And one semester of not doing great, that can be a really a sort of a dead weight on your GPA. And that's something I hear sophomores and juniors and seniors going, oh, I had that really bad, one semester, and I'm still trying to pull up my GPA from that. And that can be difficult.
not only that, on your GPA, it can weigh you down.
Oh yeah, emotionally,
like,
absolutely, exactly. And then do I retake these courses? How do I fit that in?
Yeah.
I still want to graduate in 4 years, and so really, navigating that. And I think this is also a challenge. So it comes a bit back to that first year is, related to sort of what your values are, what's important to you, and then also the social opportunities to include, going out and drinking and other substances that might have been a part of your life in college or in high school, or maybe not. We have a lot of students who maybe didn't drink very much before they came to high school, but now the opportunity, it's going to be more available. I'm not stupid. I know that that's happening, but really trying to figure out, what are my values? What's important for me? Can I, engage in this in a way that's still safe and doesn't get in the way of who I am, what's important to me, and also cause any sort of negative consequences. And so that's also a huge change for a lot of students in trying to figure out how to navigate that.
Right. So going along with, we're going to backtrack a little bit over to health. I mean, we're always talking about health here, but
sure,
we're going to go back to back to stress a little bit. And, you always have your parents telling you, like, oh, this is what you need to do, or, oh, we're going to take you to the doctors if this is that bad. So I know it's very difficult at first to figure, like, what's manageable, what's something that I know I don't need to worry too much about, like stress-wise or mentally, and at what point do I think I should seek out help? Right.
Excellent question. And I guess the short answer is when it's getting in the way. I guess there's sort of normal stress, and gosh, what's that definition, right? But it's like when that stress is getting in the way, when I find I missed a couple classes and that's not like me, or I slept through a meeting that I had with a faculty, a member. I missed an appointment, or I'm just not feeling right, or boy, I've started snapping at people, and that's just not my personality. When you start, and that's kind of diagnostic for us on the counseling side too, is when something starts impacting your daily functioning, sort of your normal way of being, are times where we see it as that's a time where you're going to need some intervention. But, ideally what we want to be looking at is also the prevention side, or what are things that you can do to prevent it getting to that point, because college is stressful. That's a given, but if you're doing things like maintaining healthy sleep patterns, healthy eating, and regular exercise, you're much more likely to be able to manage those stressors.
And it seems to just come down to those three things every time.
It seems to come back to that quite a bit. And those are hard. I mean, if you start getting to a point where you're very depressed, you're not getting out of bed, you're, missing classes. I mean, we talk to students who haven't left their dorm room for a week and a half. They've stopped eating. I mean, we're at a place where if I say, "Oh, go running," I mean, that's not going to help. They're not even a place where they can get themselves out of bed. So, there's that prevention side of things that we can do. But when you start seeing it creeping up where it starts affecting, you start noticing that like your behaviors are changing, those are the times you want to intervene earlier, but certainly the help is available to you at any step of the way.
Very good information. So I'm going to leave you off with one last question. Okay. Do you have any tips for any incoming students? This is something I'm going to ask every interview that I have.
Tips. Well, it's probably going to be a revision of a little bit of what we've already talked about, really looking at starting to have the thoughts about how you might handle these things on your own, ways that you can be organized, starting to look at even how you might take those responsibilities on yourself. I mean, if you're a senior in high school and your parents are the ones that are always making your doctor's appointments, just say, hey, could I do that? Where you start taking more ownership. I mean, maybe you're already working a job and you pay for your car insurance and the gas in your car, and so there's a lot more responsibility in your life. But if that's not the case, maybe start evaluating evaluating what are some things that I might be able to take on, because that this is part of. I often think about college. It's not just about what you're learning here is not just about how to earn a living, but it's how to live life. And the sooner you can start learning those things that you're taking on yourself, like if your parents still do your laundry and they clear the dishes from the dinner table and are cleaning up stuff, all of these things are going to be up to you right now. So what are some things that you might start being able to take on your own? Think about ways to, how organized am I? And how are my eating habits, my sleeping habits, those kinds of things. What are some healthy habits that I can develop now if I don't have, and how might I translate those into being, when I'm at school and talking to people. I think this podcast idea is fabulous.
Thank you.
The more that you can, give people information and have them thinking about the challenges that they may be facing, but how you face those challenges and how I face those challenges is going to be different. Hearing how other people navigated it is certainly very, very helpful, but we also want to come back and say, well, what might that be like for me? And kind of imagining it. You're never going to be able to predict exactly what's going to happen, but you can start thinking about things as far as, well, if everybody in my suite decides they want to go out drinking and I'm not sure how I feel about that, how might I handle that? And starting to think about how you might approach those situations that you anticipate might be challenging.
Right. Because I think a lot of people, they look up college information, they get to know what the academic is like, what they're going to study, but it's not until you really talk to people who've been on the campus and who've lived there that you really get a sense of the life of the campus and what it's like. Because that's a very important part of coming to campus, like the student body.
Exactly. It's huge. And I think, Fredonia is a wonderful size. It gives you the opportunity to, know your faculty. The classes typically aren't very big. Some of the first year courses might be, but you have the opportunity to really not just be your F number, you really be a person. And I think some other things that come to mind, and these are maybe a little bit separate from many of the things we've talked about, but looking at ways that you can find a mentor for yourself when you're when you start at college. And that may not be someone you identify the first year. Maybe you start, thinking about who you meet that might be that person. It might be an upperclassman. It might be a staff member or a faculty member. But being able to connect with somebody on a more personal level where they get to know you and can kind of mentor you and guide you. And I'm not just talking academically, but these are people who have already been through this process and can be an amazing help. And Fredonia has a great opportunity from that. It may be, if you work at FSA, it may be the human resources manager that you talk to who ends up becoming a mentor. It may be the librarian that you've just asked so many questions to that you start to get to know them and they get to know you. But finding a mentor, taking advantage of the opportunities, trying new things, pushing yourself outside your comfort zone. And also doing things like volunteering and internships. Internships are such a great way to figure out what you want to do, but also what you don't want to do. I did an internship for guidance counseling when I was in Fredonia here, and I hated it. I was like, wow, I so don't want to do this. But it was so helpful for me because it allowed me to eliminate a whole bunch of things and really focus on what I was much more interested in. So
very interesting. Well, I think we'll wrap it up right there. So thank you very much
You're
for
very
sitting down
welcome.
with me and doing this, Tracy, taking time out of your day.
Not at all, and I'm really, really impressed that you're doing this. I hope it's helpful.
Thank you very much.
It's such a great idea.
That was a really good interview, I'd say.
Yeah, it was.
A little short, unfortunately. She had, she's a counselor. She's got a lot of work she does throughout the day.
Obligations.
So I was really lucky that it was really nice of her to give me her time and talk about, just health on campus in general. So we talked about a lot, and I think you and I should go and talk about some of the stresses and some of the stuff we've dealt with so far, because we're halfway done with college at this point.
Yeah.
So I figure we're not doctors. We can't prescribe anything.
No.
But we can definitely talk about what we feel. I feel like it's important to mention that, considering we're talking about health, that we are not professionals in any way. We're just talking about what we've been through,
our experiences,
and what we did about it, and what kind of help we sought out.
Number one tip: do not use WebMD. Don't. Bad.
Oh, yeah, it could give you, I guess, you might jump to conclusions if you use WebMD. You might assume automatically that, oh gosh, I have cancer.
At one point, I thought I had diagnosed depression, and then I realized that I needed to use the bathroom.
A little personal, Joe. It's a TMI.
Hey, no, I actually am going to talk about that to a degree because it's important.
I guess it can be because, a lot of, I think your problem was you went from home cooking,
Home cooking to college food, and that's a common problem. College food's very different from home food.
Mm-hmm. It might be an embarrassing topic to some people, but actually, you do bring up a good point. It's something, serious. It rocks your world. It messes with your day-to-day life, and that must have been so stressful for you.
Oh, yes, it was. It was because I never really had to deal with anything like that before where, the food was so different and my body didn't like it that it didn't know how to handle it. So it's just like, all right, we're going to shut all of your digestive stuff down and make it really difficult to eat. And it's like, that's not fun.
No. And I can see how that leads, to you thinking, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? I'm lethargic. All these issues are happening.
Yeah, because when you keep eating and you don't get rid of the stuff that you don't need anymore and just keeps getting built up, things become difficult. It's hard to be energetic and to be caring all the time, and you're thinking to yourself, what the heck is wrong with me?
Right. And then I think one of the important things we talked about, Tracy and I, was that it's okay, when you start realizing something's wrong with you, that's when it's perfectly fine for you to go and seek help and say, something's wrong with me and I need to go talk to someone about this.
But do not self-diagnose yourself. Rule number 1.
Yeah. In college, you may be on your own, but in any case, you should definitely talk to professionals. We're not professionals. Talk to professionals.
Talk to professionals. And if one professional's not doing you good, talk to another one. Talk to a professional until you can find the problem.
Yeah. And I really think that's a great piece of advice, Joe. So as uncomfortable as it may be to share with a lot of people, thank you for sharing.
It's important.
Yeah, it is. Some of these things need to be talked about sometimes. And one of the things I had an issue with myself was homesickness.
Oh yeah, that.
My first week at college was very difficult. I got better immediately. I got better, but oh my goodness, I had so many issues that first couple of weeks to month of school. I was not in a good place. I was stressing out like crazy. I don't know. I think I might have had a couple panic moments where I'm just like, I feel numb. I'm not exactly sure what's going on. I've focused too much on my breathing. It feels difficult. And I think that those were just possibly minor panic attacks that I was having because I wasn't home. I wasn't in a comfortable space. I was exposed to this new reality that was just totally different from what I'm used to living with.
Yeah.
Because, I have a big family, 6 of us, and I have never, been alone. I've always been surrounded by people I know. And then all of a sudden I'm pushed into college and...
You're like a fish out of water.
I'm like, I don't know anyone. Of course, I know a couple people who I went to high school with who ended up going to the same college, but I didn't know who people were. And that really scared me to a point where I was freaking out. I think I became I forget the term, but I was thinking I had every kind of sickness. I thought I was ill every day. And it turns out it was just stress building up. And I didn't seek out medical help. I didn't go to any counseling. And I think I could have probably had a bit of help if I did. I probably would have felt better about it. But it was like a long talk on the phone with my parents later. I felt so much better about college. They told me that I was not the only person.
That was going
I was surrounded by literally hundreds of people who were under the same stresses that I were, who were going through probably the same kind of ailments, like, oh my gosh, I'm away from home. It made me feel a lot better, honestly, when I realized that, I'm not the only one. There's so many other people who are going through this right now.
Yeah, I didn't have the same level of homesickness that you did. I definitely missed my friends, and not having my mom there when I was having a rough time was definitely not the best feeling in the world. Like, oh God, I really am by myself.
Yeah.
Because, man, I was going through some like weird stomach things the first week, where after like a good hour-long nap, I felt better. But they were happening for a reason, and I just didn't understand it at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that was probably stress. Some of it might have also had to do with the fact that, you're on a campus full of, like, young people from places that are not your hometown.
Yeah.
So it's very possible that you can get sick, especially more so if you live either in a larger population, like if you have a campus of thousands.
Places, like Ivy League schools, probably, like Buffalo, not Ivy League.
Like city schools, like Buffalo.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Buffalo I don't think is an Ivy League school.
No, it's not.
UB.
Like UB is a SUNY, I believe.
But you get like places like, I'm assuming Harvard and Yale, like thousands of people go to this campus.
Oh,
hundreds of thousands maybe.
I don't know about hundreds.
Tens of thousands? I don't know.
Tens of thousands I can see for Harvard.
I'm okay with numbers.
Anyways. Hundreds of thousands is like a city.
Probably.
That's a city population. But I would say that as far as the stress goes, if you're having trouble, you should definitely seek someone out. Talk to your parents. Talk to your friends from home. See what they're going through.
Mm-hmm.
Something that's great that really helps, like even if you don't commit to the whole thing every single time, it'll at least get you on the path. Go to your school's counseling center.
They can do wonders.
They really can, because I remember my first year, I was going through a lot of problems. Like, oh my God, am I going to be safe here? Am I okay here? And after like a couple meetings with a counselor and some group counseling, where you talk to a whole bunch of, not a whole bunch, like let's say in the room there's like 9 people, including yourself, that are all dealing with the same thing in slightly different ways, and just like talking to each other and hearing each other out. I was really looking forward to my meetings like every week that I was doing them.
Mm-hmm. And I want to mention right now, I love college. Like,
yeah, me too.
After that first month of like, after that first month of just the stress, I love living on my own. It's like one of my favorite things now is during the summer I love being at home, but come late July, early August, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't wait for school to start again.
Yeah, because that's really fun.
Yeah, and you see all the people you made friends with, and I think I'm just excited to collaborate and work with people.
Yeah,
when I get back to school.
That's something about home that I do not get that I do with college, is that collaboration's so easy here.
Look what we're doing right now, making a podcast about going to college.
Like this alone, was just honestly like a 20-minute, oh hey, this would be a cool idea. Oh yeah, that sounds like a cool idea. Let's do it. Yeah, let's do it. It was as simple as that.
And I think that's another one of the fun things you can do to manage stress is just do stuff.
Yeah, get stuff, like
make things.
I am the kind of person that if left alone for enough time, I don't mean this in the dark way, but I can, like my thought train can start chugging, and then choo-choo, yep. And then things get difficult to concentrate on, and then I'm just pacing around the room for 20 minutes. It's really good to just do something and get your mind off of like things for, I don't know, half hour, that sort of thing, that range.
Yeah, I'm definitely one of those people who I don't get creative and I don't get motivated unless I'm like, this is weird, stressing and working at school. Like if I'm at home during the summer and I'm not doing anything, I think that boredness amplifies on itself, and I'm just bored and I don't know what to do. It's not until I get to school and start working on stuff that I realize, I should start writing movie scripts. I should start making ideas for like shows or something, working on a podcast.
Yeah, it's like I definitely feel that, and that's a habit that I'm going to have to change when I get out of college, because I'm going to have to find a way to get myself to do things I like, because school is a great motivator. Grades are a great motivator because if I was just left completely to myself, I'd never get anything done. I hate to say it, but it's really hard for me to be motivated when it's just me, myself, and I.
And going along with motivation and stress management, surprisingly, in my opinion, I was really surprised to find this out. Exercise is actually one of the best stress relievers.
Oh, it's amazing.
I mean, you might like rue it. You might not look forward to actually exercising. I know I don't always, but like afterwards, when you finish exercising and you're just tired, there's this weird euphoria that you're in, and you're thinking to yourself like, oh my gosh, I feel so free. I feel fine all of a sudden.
It's like a couple weeks ago after a creative writing class, when I got my critiques back to like a thing I wrote, there was this one person that was not particularly fond of my story, and they did not hide it either. And that made me really mad. I was really annoyed with that. And I was yelling and hollering in my room. I don't think anyone was there at the time, like in the suite in general. And I told myself out loud, I'm not going to be able to concentrate if I'm like this. I'm going to go run a mile. And I did. I ran an 8.5-minute mile. And when my emotions were trying to get back onto that thought pattern, I just couldn't. I was so exhausted, and it felt good. I was able to think rationally.
Yeah, and I used to run track in high school. I mentioned it already in the interview. I ran track in high school, and it was nice. I hated track the first week, but it's weird how you learn to love it. And I don't know what it is exactly. I think it's your brain releasing those chemicals when you work out, saying like, oh, I gotta feel good now. I don't know the science exactly behind it. All I know is it works, weirdly enough. And, you can't just... Tracy said, I walk to class every day. That's not enough.
No, that's not enough.
It really isn't enough. You need to get up and do things, get active.
Maybe it will help you burn calories, but that's not exercise. That's just transporting yourself. That's not working your body.
Yeah. And I have to say, I'm really excited, actually, to be taking a yoga class next semester.
Yeah.
It's not working out, but I feel like I could use some sort of physical activity to wake up in the morning.
Yoga's kind of good for flexibility purposes too.
I'm already super flexible, so I have no.
I am about as stiff as a log, so I can't. I am really, really not flexible. I don't know what the technical term is.
Inflexible? I don't know. Unflexible?
Limber?
I couldn't tell you. Anyways, it's just there's a lot of different things you can do on campus to manage stress and keep your health up and your sad thoughts down.
Yeah, it's amazing what. Also, I guess this is also relevant. Eating well enough will also keep you emotionally stable.
Oh my gosh, I almost forgot about eating well.
Yeah,
Tracy and I talked about this during the interview.
Yeah,
too.
I remember that.
So thanks for bringing that up. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mentioned earlier how college food can really wreck your digestive system and can make life a little harder. But there's a lot of options at colleges normally that you don't get at home, like a lot of the fast foodie type stuff that that's good for the soul, not for the heart. That just turns into bad for everything.
Yeah, French fries and milkshakes every night isn't going to help you.
No,
I did that, and it didn't end up as badly as Joe. Thank goodness. But I had a bad time for a solid week where I was like, oh, I feel bad. I don't feel good about myself. Oh my gosh, I'm just eating milkshakes and French fries every night. Day. That's probably not helping. And
because
now I try my hardest to have at least a salad every once in a while. I like healthy food. Yeah,
it's good to have a comfort food, but if your comfort food becomes your everyday food, it's not good for you.
That can be a dangerous, slippery slope.
There is this one comic on the internet that's pretty popular. It's these two women that are talking, and this one woman is I only eat ice cream when I'm sad, and then the one woman goes, wait, aren't you don't you eat ice cream every night? And then it's just the last panels, the girl just sort of staring off into the distance.
Do you know who made this comic?
I don't know.
It's somewhere on the internet?
It's like a Skullgirls comic. Skullgirls is a video game.
Oh, okay, I see. It's funny.
It's a very funny comic, but it's kind of wholesome in a way, because when your comfort food becomes your everyday food, it's not really a comfort food anymore, and then something has to change.
Yeah, it becomes more of a crutch, and that crutch isn't really helping. But anyways, I feel like we've covered a lot of topics here tonight.
Yeah.
Today, whenever we recorded this.
Sometime.
So, thank you, everybody.
8:28 p.m.
8:28 p.m. That's the time we recorded this.
Yeah.
But thank you, everybody, for listening and tuning in to the College Noobcast, a podcast dedicated to teaching you about college life. We'll catch you later in the next episode. Thank you.
Bye.